Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is going to be episode 5 of the final season of Game of Thrones review. I May Cry.
Okay.
This, we're not going to lie, this was a rough episode to watch.
Yeah. It was intense.
It was super intense. I don't know what they're going to... I thought Battle of Winterfell was, like, intense, but it's been getting intenser and intenser as we have been going along. Intenser, more intense.
More intense. There
intense
you
go. And easy. Okay. So let's get into this, and we're going to do our best to try to break it down. There's like 4 major segments, kind of, I think, that we need to talk about, but...
Okay.
But we'll try to break it down, hit highlights and stuff like that. Let's start with the intro.
Yep.
Intro was the same.
Yep.
The only difference was we got
Nikolai
Habibulin, Jamie Lannister, the real actor, the actor, and Lena Headey as the first 2 actors shown, and that's been kind of a cue of major characters that we may be losing this season. And they were the first 2 to be shown and
right
as we went through the wall and down to Hearthhome.
Right. But everything else was pretty much
the same. And once again they showed nothing that stuff that we thought was going to happen didn't happen, with like the comet and the
right.
all that kind of stuff, and
right.
And so so the episode starts with Varys writing Raven scrolls saying Jon is the true heir.
Right.
And it looks like he's trying to build a network of people to overthrow Dany.
Right.
Which is pretty much what we talked about in the last episode.
Right. But now he's actually going through with it and sending out ravens.
Right, because he has always been for the people.
Yes.
And he can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. And he even, there's a little girl who comes in and tells him that Dany's still not eating, and kind of showing that he's of the people. She's a slave, or she works in the kitchen.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Family. And he even tells her... the greater the risk, the greater the reward.
Yeah.
So, which will be prophetic for him in just a few moments.
Right. They show Jon showing up ahead of the army. Looks like they called for him, and because Dany is not eating, she's not seeing anyone, she's not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
She was already cut off from everybody else, but now she's completely cut herself off. And is become a shut-in. And Varys is the first one to meet Jon on the beach.
Right.
And Varys pretty much says, I know. He doesn't say this, I know, but it pretty much says, you're going to be the best king.
Yeah, pretty much I'm putting all my eggs in your basket.
Right. And at which point Jon spits at him. He doesn't actually physically spit at him, but he says, no, Dany's our queen.
Right.
I don't want the throne. I don't want it. No, I don't care if I have the rightful claim to the throne. Yeah. I don't want it. And kind of tells Varys off. And while this is all going on, Tyrion is watching from the cliffside.
Yep. And I'm sure he knows kind of what the conversation is. He can tell. They stop, they talk, and then Varys stays there, and Jon keeps going. So
Jon kind of, I won't say storms off, but he walks off in anger.
With body language, you can kind of probably tell what.
Tyrion goes to see Dany, and he walks in. There was a lot of like these cool shots with Tyrion in this episode, where it was the side profile of him, single shot. With the dragon in the back.
Yeah,
the dragon
weird.
Carving in the background. Yeah. And it was a really weird shot, but maybe foreshadowing of, I don't know.
He can interact with the dragons, right? We saw that last season. So does that mean the fan theory that he's also a Targaryen? Is that what that means?
Would be maybe. maybe kind of showing that maybe he is the rightful heir to the throne. If Jon and Dany aren't left, he's the next in line. Dany looks really, really rough. She's super pale, sunken eyes. You can tell she hasn't been eating, and she's very distraught. She's lost her best friend. She's lost one of her children. She's lost her number one defendant with Jorah. And then all of her other confidants have they've kind of gone behind her back and isolated her really bad.
I mean, all she had left was Tyrion and Varys, and she now knows that Tyrion found out and told Varys, and now Varys is plotting.
Varys is plotting. When Tyrion goes in to see Dany, she says she's been betrayed by Jon, and Tyrion kind of says, no, it was Varys.
Right.
And then she kind of does the Varys found out from you found out from Sansa found out from Jon, so it's Jon's fault.
Right.
But it's obvious that she's made a decision to kill Varys.
Right.
And to execute him for treason, and and Tyrion tries to talk her out of it, and he finally just says it doesn't matter now, and she says it doesn't matter now, and the next scene is Varys still doing the Raven scrolls.
Yeah.
I can hear the Unsullied coming down the hall, and he burns the last scroll, takes his rings off, and Grey Worm walks in with the cuffs, takes him outside. Short trial.
There really wasn't a trial.
And
trial by fire.
And Dracarys, and he burns in Westeros like Melisandre said he was going to.
Right, that's true.
So that is the end of Varys, and that is the end of that story arc, we think. In that whole process, Tyrion goes over to Varys and tells him, hey, it was me that told Dany that you were doing this.
Right.
Because he is still on team Dany, just like Jon.
Right.
And just like Grey Worm. And so it is the end of that whole process. We have a scene with Grey Worm and Dany, and Dany's got the collar that Melisandre had. Missandei. Too many M names, guys. Sorry. Missandei had. It was her only possession that she kept.
Right.
And Dany hands it to Grey Worm, and he looks at it and throws it in the fire.
Yep.
Kind of making the final exclamation point on I'm done grieving over this. I'm done dealing with all of this. I'm done with this.
Yeah, it could also be that he, her giving him this possession, you would keep that and take it with you throughout the rest of your life.
Right.
But it could also be him saying, this is it for me too. He's going in, and he
as an Unsullied, he's been trained to not feel, and when he finally feels, he gets that feeling taken away from him, and now he has shut that part of himself down again. That was him throwing the collar in. And, Jon and Dany have a conversation. Dany tries once again to get Jon to come onto her side, and she professes her love to him and his love to her, and they start to kiss, and he backs away from her again.
Yeah.
Again, kind of doing the whole, I remember you're my aunt.
Yeah.
And
this is kind of gross.
This is kind of weird. And in that exchange, Dany says, I'd rather rule out of love than out of fear, but I can rule out of fear if I have to.
Right.
And in that exchange of them not, trying to kiss and whatever, when Jon backs up, Dany looks at him and says, fear then.
Right. So he was kind of making that decision for her.
Yeah.
Which, emotional blackmail?
Yeah. We have a small war meeting to say this is what we're going to do on the attacking of King's Landing, and Tyrion pleads and pleads and pleads to get Danny not to burn the town, not to burn down the city.
Right.
With all the people
in it. There's a million people in there.
Right. And so
one Cersei.
And one Cersei. And he says if they ring the bell, they surrender. You cannot, if you really want to rule out of love and not fear,
right,
then you need to, stand down.
Right.
And Danny agrees.
Sure.
Kind of. But then also makes a point of saying the next time you fail me, it will be your last time, because they found out that Jaime got caught trying to cross their lines. Mm-hmm. And so this leads to a whole bunch of different things. We get Arya and Hound sneaking through camp. We get Tyrion asking Davos to help get Jaime out and stuff.
Right.
Tyrion goes and essentially talks the Unsullied out of leaving their posts because he outranks all of them, which was a really cool scene. And he convinces Jaime to go save Cersei and have the two of them ride off into the sunset together.
Right. And he actually tells him there's this, hole. It's the same way he snuck in with Davos
to get Gentry and to get when they were trying to meet Jaime and Cersei, when he went to go meet Cersei.
And then Davos went and got Gendry. So it's the same thing in reverse. He had a dinghy waiting there for them and told them how to get out.
Right. He convinces Jaime. Tyrion convinces Jaime to save Cersei and tens of thousands of people from what Dany is thinking about doing, what everybody thinks that she's thinking about doing.
Right.
And he's like, get in the town, get Cersei, ring the bell, get out.
Right.
And Jaime and they have a big embrace, and I think they both at that point in time understand that they're never going to see each other again.
Yeah. Well, maybe not the way it ended up, but Jaime would take Cersei and they were going to go away probably to Esteros. I think they said, but I don't remember. So they're probably not going to see each other again.
Tyrion does make a point at that point in time to tell Jaime, you're the only one who ever cared for me. You didn't see me as a monster, and that's why I'm helping you now save the woman, you and the woman you love.
Yeah, he's actually said that a couple of times throughout the whole series, that Jaime was the only one that didn't consider him a monster. I think in the books he even talks about that, how Cersei would come to his crib and pinch him and do all this stuff to him, and Jaime never did that.
So we go to King's Landing finally, and we have the beginning of what's going to be the siege of King's Landing. They show the Iron Fleet in Blackwater Bay, and they make a point of showing a bell tower with all the scorpions on the ramparts and the Iron Fleet behind it.
Right. Well, because Tyrion told Jaime, because Jaime said, how are we supposed to sneak by the whole Iron Fleet?
Yeah, that's right.
And Tyrion said, the Iron Fleet won't be there, and ring the bell. So they show the bell, they show the Iron Fleet. So, now we have solidified what Jaime is supposed to do
to get out and everything.
Yeah.
They show the Hound and Arya slipping into King's Landing with the flood of people.
Right.
As they're slipping in, the Golden Company is going outside. They also show Jaime sneaking in, kind of behind them in the crowd. The crowd.
I wanted to, when everybody was going into King's Landing, I wanted to do the whole no blades, no bows, check your weapons here. No blades, no bows, check your weapons here.
And so we have the setup. We have the Iron Fleet in Blackwater Bay. We have all the scorpions around on the walls. We have the Golden Company out with their 20,000 fighters out facing the Unsullied, the North, and the Dothraki.
Right.
Or what's left of all of them after the big battle.
Right.
And they pan to Euron, and Euron's standing on a ship, all cocksure and headstrong and all that stuff. And he looks over his shoulder to see a dragon coming in, but hidden by the sun.
Yeah. Which
is actually a really cool point. Now, in the trailer, I thought that was the comet.
Right.
And I had this theory that Bran had
actually done something when he
warged into the ravens to go call a bunch of other draggons that nobody never knew of, and they were all coming in, but that's not what happened. Dany came in hidden and also in a position where she couldn't get hit by the scorpions because they couldn't go vertical with their shots.
Right.
And she decimates the Iron Fleet.
Right. And this was kind of I heard a couple complaints with the last episode where they just take out, was it Viserys?
Right.
The other dragon.
Rhaegal.
Where they just, take him out. And I think that it was more, they weren't prepared. They didn't realize, for whatever reason, that they would be hiding behind the rock.
Right.
So there was a lot of complaint about, why didn't you just bring the dragons in from the other side? Or,
right.
Why did you just...
Because they didn't expect them to be there.
Right.
Right.
So this was kind of taking advantage of some of those opportunities, I guess, that you would have as with the dragons.
They learned from their mistakes from the previous
previous
engagement, which is always what happens when you have a war kind of thing, is somebody exploits a weakness, you fix that weakness, and you exploit the weakness back and stuff like that.
Right,
so,
hopefully.
And they take out the Iron Fleet. Dany and Drogo take Drogon. Take out the Iron Fleet. They take out the Scorpions on the wall, and they make a point of killing just soldiers and everything.
Right.
And then we have this really cool Mexican standoff between the Golden Company and Dany's foot army. It's about the only way I can explain it.
Right, Jon, and it looks like the North.
And the North and
maybe
the Unsullied. They're all lined up and they're all looking at each other. And there's this rumbling in the background behind the Golden Company. And the head of the Golden Company looks over his shoulder, and the gate that they were protecting explodes with fire.
Right.
And Drogon and Dany fly through and decimate the Golden Company from behind.
Right.
And that's the cue, and the Dothraki do a full charge into the city and just start mowing down the Lannisters and the Golden Company that's left, and just everybody.
Right.
Everybody that's a soldier all the way through. And they make a point of just showing the decimation of that Dothraki charge, but now it's street by street instead of across the valley, which is kind of different than what we had from the previous the Battle of Winterfell, where that charge kind of got stood up and decimated, reversed wise, and now they are into the streets of
okay, so you skipped some stuff there. So while Jon is with the army and they're having the standoff against the Lannisters,
the Golden Company,
Lannisters.
That's what was next. That's what I'm going to next.
Okay.
We get to this standoff, and it's Dany's army, and it's got Jon, Grey Worm, and Davos with the army in a street, and right in front of them is the Lannister army.
Right.
And they're all standing there, and they're just looking at each other. There's nothing going on. They're just looking at each other, and you can kind of start to see in the Lannister army's faces that they really don't want to fight this fight.
Right.
And Dany and Drogo come in, and they land on the ramparts behind them. So now they're surrounded. They've got the biggest army ever conceived by man standing in front of them, and a dragon behind them.
Right.
And they decide to throw down their arms.
Right. Yep.
So we get another Mexican standoff with Dany and Drogo looking across King's Landing up to the Red Keep where Cersei is standing.
Right.
And in the background, you can hear people calling for them to ring the bell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the ringing of the bell, King's Landing surrenders.
Right.
And we get a long exhale from both Dany and Cersei. And Cersei's crying like a single tear, and she's making a point of like, I wasn't going to say it. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to surrender. Multiple times Qyburn came in and said, we should probably leave. And she's like, the Red Keep's never fallen, and no army's ever breached here.
Yeah.
And they have this whole long distance exchange of looks with each other. We're going to go to break and talk about what happens after that, because we're going to have a long discussion about this. All right, we're going to come back after the break. I need some water and maybe a tissue after the break. Hello, cult members. Like what you've heard on this podcast? Then please subscribe and follow us here. You can also find us on Facebook at the Pop Culture Cult. We're on Instagram at PopCultureCult1. And we're on Twitter at pop_cult1. We're also on YouTube at PopCultureCult and on the Stardust app under PopCultureCult. Please help us by liking, following, and subscribing to everything we have. This helps us build a bigger and better cult of pop culture. And we're back. Okay, we've got what we wanted. King's Landing has surrendered to Dany and her army and her dragon, and only those who fought were the ones who were killed.
Right.
None of the innocents have been killed. Tyrion has got everything that he was hoping for, and Dany looks across King's Landing up to the Red Keep and realizes everything that her family has gone through after losing the Red Keep for the last 300 years. And her birthright is to have that building and everything that is that meaning of that building, and takes off and burns King's Landing to the ground.
Yep.
Everyone in the streets. And in the standoff in the street between Dany's army and the Lannister army, Grey Worm throws a spear and throws the first shot after the Lannister army had dropped their swords.
Right. So they're completely defenseless.
Actually, I think he hits one of the guys in the back. I think he
hit him in the front.
He was in, okay. Mm-hmm. And so they go on a killing spree of everyone in the streets.
Right.
And starts the next 30 minutes of just utter decimation of King's Landing.
Yep.
And it is super hard to watch because they made a point of filming it from the innocent people on the streets point of view,
right,
instead of the actual heroes of the battle.
Yeah. So it's jumbled around. I mean, it jumps around, and kind of like the Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah, except this time it's in the daylight, not at night.
Right. So all the internet haters can shut up because you could actually see it. But all the perspectives were pretty much the same as the Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah. Tyrion watches in horror as Dany starts to burn King's Landing to the ground, and he starts realizing that she is everything that Varys said that she was going to be.
Yep.
And also we get Jon in a very cool slow motion shot watch as Dany's army takes the cue from her and starts killing innocent people and attempting to rape women, and his values that he always kind of imparted on the northern fighters wasn't reciprocated by them. They took their cue from Dany. Dany's on this killing spree, and so they decide to go full Viking and take whatever they want.
Right. And I mean, the Dothraki at least are, that's who they were, who they are.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think Jon was a little naive. Maybe he didn't know that, but he was a little naive to think, they've just...
They've reformed.
Now that Dany's their queen, they're not going to be like that.
But all the northern fighters started doing it too. Jon even saves a lady who is about to get raped by a Northern fighter.
Yeah.
And even John gives him a chance to back down, and the guy's like, no, this is my right, for my conquering right is to take this.
Yeah.
And John kills him. And so we get this whole exchange, and all this is going on. And by the way, Jaime's trying to sneak into King's Landing around the back and finds the skiff, and is trying to get in to save Cersei.
Right.
And Euron comes out of the water.
Right.
Of course Euron's alive.
Right.
And of course the two of them are going to fight for Cersei.
Right.
And they have a long extended fight. And Euron finally stabs Jaime in the ribs with his dagger. And Jaime's kind of lying on the ground. And Euron kind of says, hey, that was a good fight for a cripple.
Yeah.
Good job. And Jaime does not want to quit. He will not quit until he gets what he wants. And that's to get to Cersei. And he goes for a sword. Euron stabs him again on the other side, turns around, and just guts him. Yeah. And Euron makes a point of oh, you are the Kingslayer. You get to kill two kings. Yeah. And it was a good fight. Yeah. For Jaime with, his off wet hand.
Yeah. He finally kind of started to realize that you have this big metal thing on your arm. You could use it as a club.
Yeah. As they're burning the town, there's a shot, and you see green flame. It's the wildfire stores are all starting to light, which is what I thought Cersei was going to do. She was going to light that city on fire with the wildfire. Right. But that wasn't what happened. As Jaime walks away, Euron says, I'm the man that killed Jaime Lannister. Well...
You first.
They get a scene. Dany is full on burning everything and starting to destroy the Red Keep. And they go, the Hound and Arya walk into the map room, showing the map of Westeros. And the Hound kind of stops and collects his thoughts and tells Arya to go home. Yeah. And she's like, nope, I'm here to kill Cersei. That was the whole reason I was here. Yep. And he grabs her and turns and says, I knew this was a one-way trip. Yeah. And do you really want to end up like me, filled with hate and rage your entire life and die while everything around you falls? Or you have so much to live for, go.
Yeah. Basically.
Go be with Gentry is what it is. Right. And Arya says, as she makes the decision to leave. Right. And Hound starts to go up the stairs, and Arya calls to him and calls him Sonder for the first time in the entire series. Yeah. She's always called him the Hound. Right. Or Clegane. And Clegane, however you say his name. But and thanks him for showing her that she needs to not be there. She needs to go.
I think she just said thank you, and that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They've had
a big past.
Yeah, they've had however much time. I mean, he saved her, when way back in the beginning when she was being kidnapped and taken away, whatever, he saved her and taught her some things, kind of helped her on her path to, where she ended up going. Right. Inadvertently. And then the stuff, at the end, it was, I think a lot of things all in one.
I think it was a good point too for, it was one of the few times that Sonder actually had an emotional connection with somebody and actually relayed that emotional connection with them. Even with Sansa, he really didn't have that. Like, he felt guilt for what happened to her, and it was her kind of giving him the okay that, I've grown and I've gotten past it, and it's not your fault kind of thing.
I think he definitely had a soft spot in his heart for both of the Stark girls.
Both the Stark girls. He goes up the stairs and runs into Cersei and Qyburn and the mountain and and as they're going up the stairs, as they're coming down the stairs, the building comes down around them, and the mountain protects Qyburn and Cersei, and the building falls down on top of them, and they push all the rubble off, and the Hound's standing there, and the rest of the guard go down, and he takes quick work of them.
Yeah, there's only like 4 or 5 left.
Yeah, and so it's the Hound at the bottom of the stairs, and the Mountain, Cersei, and Qyburn at the top of the stairs.
Yep.
And the Mountain starts to walk away from Cersei. And Cersei says, I didn't give you permission to go.
Yeah.
Stay.
Yeah.
And he like kind of turns and looks at her and takes a couple more steps. And Qyburn says, listen to your queen like you've been told. And he goes over to stand in front of him, and Mountain grabs him by the collar and throws him down the stairs. Throws him against the wall and then throws him down the stairs, and his head pops off. The top of his head pops off, and the Mountain killed his creator.
Yes. Yeah.
And we finally get Clegane Bowl.
Yep.
Clegane Bowl.
Clegane.
Bowl.
I can't look at how you spelled it.
No. My notes are very oddly like word checked, smell checked badly. And they have a full on during the apocalypse, Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. Yeah. Buildings falling or has fallen down around them, and yeah.
You one shot you get from inside the keep, looking at them fighting on the stairs, and the wall behind them is gone, and you have the blue sky, and every once in a while the dragon flies by, and then they spin back around looking overhead. You look down, you see the fire at the base, and but the Hound stabs him with his sword and multiple times.
Yeah. He's already dead. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna kill him?
Cut his head off. That's about the only thing I think of.
Yeah.
And so finally, Mountain's got him by the neck against the wall and picks him up and starts to push his eyes in like he did the Red Viper, whose real name I can't remember right now, and starts to try to kill him that way. And the Hound just stabs him with his dagger, and finally stabs him in the eye.
Right.
And drops him. And finally, that what leads to dropping him.
Right. The Mountain drops
the Hound.
Yeah.
And so there's a moment.
He kind of staggers back, and then
you think for a second that maybe he won the fight this way.
Right.
You think for a second, and then the Mountain reaches up and pulls the dagger out of his head.
Yeah.
And the Hound just like Sonder just like okay, and goes over and tackles him through the wall, and they fall together to their death into the fire below.
Yep.
So the Hound dies by fire and by his brother.
With his brother,
yeah. Right. And so we finally get a closure on that. So we got Qyburn off the board, you got Euron off the board, you got Mountain, Hound, Varys, all off the board.
Yep.
Okay. Jon and Davos decide to call for a retreat. I don't know why this didn't happen earlier while Dany was burning everybody in the streets. Arya now has to get from the Red Keep out of town. And so she's the character in the most peril because she's with all of the people in the city.
Right, yeah. And she's like trying not to be trampled and crushed by falling debris or burned, and yeah.
And she's doing her best to help people too, but she gets knocked out by falling debris, and you think, and there's smoke and stuff, and you think that something happened to her, and they cut to Jaime finding Cersei in the map room.
Right.
And they embrace, and Jaime's kind of making a point of saying, I'm here to be with you, to save you. And Cersei's like, you're bleeding. And he's like, it's nothing. Let's go. And they end up in the cellar where that scorpion was, where they, a couple of seasons ago, and Qyburn shot the arrow into the skeleton.
Right.
And which has been in the opening credits as a major thing when they showed King's Landing and the Red Keep. And so they get down there and they try to escape the way that Tyrion was trying to.
Yeah, they're trying to get out
that way
in the boat.
and they come to a realization that they're not gonna make it. And she starts freaking out. I want my baby to live. I want my baby to live. I want my baby to live. I don't want to die this way. Not here, not here, not here. And Jamie grabs her and kind of like makes her look at him in the face and say, it's just us. It's just the two of us. And the room collapses, burying them alive.
Right.
Which is not what the prophecy said.
She didn't die at the hand of her brother. She died in the arms of her brother. It's a slight misinterpretation.
And they talked about how, there's some slight interpretation of the prophecies as it is.
Well, and George has said prophecies don't mean anything anyway, so.
Right. Then we get a whole bunch of stuff with Arya, and this is where my notes kind of die off because I got sucked into the episode. They've called the army out. Dany's still flying around trying to kill everybody in the town. Cersei or Arya is now awake and working her way through the city. She gets stumbled upon, and she gets caught up on the ground as people are stepping over. While this is all going on, we have the fight with the Mountain and the Hound going on, and their fights are similar with each other. The Hound is down, Arya is down.
Right.
Somebody picks her up. Somebody gets picked, stands back up.
Right.
They are encountering this with Jaime and Cersei all trying to escape that way. Arya again gets knocked out by debris. She goes around a corner and into a room and finds the lady who helped her up. Right. And their child, and there's people in there, and Arya's like, we need to leave. We can't just stay here. You'll die.
Yeah.
So she tries to lead them out, and they get overtaken by the Dothraki, and they get separated a little bit. She goes over to help the lady again, and Dany comes down, and the little girl tries to save her mom, and Arya tries to save the little girl, and the little girl gets away, and Arya runs off, and Dany just firebombs the whole street.
Right, yeah.
And Arya wakes up and comes around and gets to see all this, the decimation of all the burned bodies and all the stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And she becomes the witness for the audience of the decimation.
The aftermath.
The aftermath of everything.
Yep.
And there's a white horse, one of the Dothraki white horses that's all bloody, and she rides out of town, and that's how the episode ends.
Yep.
And so Dany goes full Mad Queen and does exactly what her dad said to do.
Yep.
And that was burn them all. When Jaime killed Rhaegon Targaryen, was that his name? Rhaegon, yeah, I think it was Rhaegon. Dany's dad. It's been a long day, so you have to excuse if I can't remember everybody's name. He just screamed out, burn them all, burn them all, burn them all. And Dany did it. Dany fulfilled that part of the prophecy. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think? Oh, now what? I mean, now what are we going to get?
Well, I always knew the last episode was going to be the aftermath. So now what? I mean, Jon's alive.
Davos
is alive. Sansa in the north, they're all
Arya's
still
alive.
Up there. Arya's alive. So, and obviously Jon is not going to be Team Dany anymore.
Nope.
So
No, neither is Tyrion.
Yeah.
So she could be mad ruling by herself, with no real confidants.
Right. Just the Dothraki and the Unsullied that are left.
Right. So that makes it really interesting to see, like, kind of, we got some fulfillment of some prophecies tonight.
Yeah.
Prophecies have been a big part of the books and some of the speculations as we've been going forward in the series. But I'm wondering if we get the Jon kills Dany to take the throne and Tyrion goes back to the north to be with Sansa, and they.
I don't know. Is this last one supposed to be as long as
Yes.
this one? So
yeah,
kind
like
of
80
equally
minutes
the
or something
same.
like that. Yeah.
So I mean, they've got to kind of wrap things up. So
We got to wrap up the Dany, Jon, all that kind of stuff. We got to wrap up Dany and Tyrion. We have to wrap up Arya. Does Arya, now she doesn't have Cersei to kill, does she decide to kill the next queen for what she's done? And so does Arya get the Night King and the Mad Queen on her belt?
or
and
does
then
she just go back to Gendry?
rides off to Storm's End. And we still don't have any really completion with Sansa and Brian up north, and we still don't have any resolution with Bronn and the crossbow and High Garden and all that stuff. So
So a lot of things to wrap up.
a lot of things to wrap up, and then the weekend after that we get to go see Hodor DJ. So so that's our thoughts and our review and everything for a really intense episode 5 of season 8 of Game of Thrones. There'll be a title for it tomorrow, and I'll try to do my best to update everything as we go along. What did you guys think? Did you like this episode as much as we did? And did you cry as much as we did? I don't think we cried. I think there was a lot of slack jaw,
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
they just did that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So let us know. Leave us a comment. If you haven't already, do all the stuff we talked about in the commercial, subscribe, sign up, and all that stuff. Help us out on Patreon. And there's a poll on our Facebook page. Go do it. Please. We're looking for some information from all of you. And we're tired. We're going to go to bed after I do some editing. Until next time, good night, cult members.